Hey everyone, it's the Nitty Professor. Today we're going to address the ever-present topic of a yarn diet. So I told you guys that I sadly, did not go to the Fiber Festival in Fargo this past weekend because I was like, I bought a little yarn in Atlanta, not a lot, but and I have a lot, I am kind of on a yarn diet right now. You find ways around the cracks and crannies to kind of work around it. Like I contacted Mythological Yarns yesterday. I'm like, are we going to dye those new skeins for the books I've got coming out that I'm going to sell at the Fiber Festival in September? He's like, yeah. So, I'm going to buy that yarn because obviously I'm going to try to sell it. But, yeah, I'm sort of at a spot where being on a yarn diet is sort of a necessary evil. So I thought we would try to commiserate and because I'm sure I'm not alone, and look at sort of let's call it a randomized list of coping strategies. And along the way, I'd be really interested to see which ones resonate with you and which ones you think are just terrible ideas. Because there's some I'm like, okay, and others are like, no way. So let's just kind of take a look here and see what we have. So the first one that I think is kind of compelling really is to sort of shop your stash. And I know one of you commented recently on a video that I made about how that was actually a good option to look at what you have and sort of regard it as your own free, now at least, yarn shop. I mean, here's a bin, one of several of yarn that I really haven't dug into this one lately. So let's just do a little shopping, shall we? Let's just see what we have. We've got some lovely yarn Arbin. I would love to buy this for nothing since I already bought it, right? The idea, I smell the lavender soap. I keep lavender. Somebody said lavender soap in your buckets, it'll help keep the moths away. I'm like, I'm in. I love lavender soap and it's wafting. If only we had smell-o-vision, right? But I got this yarn in St. Paul for a Christmas sweater. I've got the gray, the red, the white. Got a whole sweater's worth. I've got a gold that goes with it. Lovely. Let's just buy this yarn, shall we? Let's just shop for this. I gotta find there's a little green in here. Yes, lovely. Ooh, I think I'm just gonna buy all this yarn from myself for no money. Maybe I'll just use some crypto coin with Donald Trump's picture on it. Oh yes, it's so worthwhile. Yep, I got plenty for that. So let's see. What else have we got? Ooh, we have this lovely Urunumira. Well, I'm just guessing that's how you pronounce that. I'll have to ask my daughter's boyfriend. This is Peace Fleece, you guys. I bought it quite a while ago. Here's something fun. I might want to buy this. Louisa Harding Kimono Angora. Look at that. Look at that halo. That's really pretty. And the colors, mwah, right? Very lovely colors with, well, Angora's at 100%. Of course, when I buy yarn, I want to know where it's made. It was made in Italy. And I think this was gifted to me. 70% Angora, 25% wool, 5% nylon. Should I buy that? Yeah, maybe. It feels really nice. It's pretty. I could just, hold it, look at it. It's kind of what I do with a lot of my yarn. What else have we got here? Here's yarn that was generously caked up for me when I purchased it 5 years ago, maybe? Quite a while. This is Scout. Yeah, Scout. I could buy Scout. That's really good yarn. It's all wool. Calborn woolens. Yep, 100%. Lovely color. Kind of a thistle. It reminds me of the thistles that grow in my neighbor's backyard that my dogs step on and kind of go, ouch. What else have we? This would be an interesting yarn. I have no idea where it came from. But it's soft and it's woolly and chances are probably came from Goodwill. Here's a lovely yarn I could buy. Baby Alpaca DK from Plymouth. Look at that. That would be kind of a lovely little baby something. I don't know. Not sure how washable it is, right? I might prefer to make something for me out of this, because that way I don't have to worry, Yeah, made in Peru, Plymouth, probably been around a little while. Again, I think it was gifted to me, but regardless, I think I might buy it now, because guess what? It's free, and I can make whatever I want. This is pretty too. Again, Mystery Origin, Monostel Uruguay, Silk, and Merino, kettle dyed. It's sort of fun, natural shades to that. That could be something very pretty. Something that I would love to make down the road, because I'm not sure what I'm going to make with it now. But I just like it, so you know what? I'm going to have it. And, not sure. I wonder if I can find the label. When you're buying yarn, it should be labeled, right? That's really, really pretty yarn. And, yeah, maybe it's labeled. I don't know. Let's see. It's going around something. Aha! It's got a label. Look at that. Stephen B. 3 Irish Girls yarn. And it's Merino Springvale worsted colorway. I mean, who can resist that? We can't resist that. Let's buy this. Electric Peacock. Electric Peacock. Now, as you're buying your yarn, you can also organize it. If you've got your own yarn shop, which a lot of us do, right? It's probably a good idea to reorganize it, freshen up the look of your shop. You can go by color, you can go by weight, you can go by content, you can go by potential projects. All kinds of things you could do to organize your yarn. What else? I could keep digging in here, right? Look at this. Cashmere Cream Dream. Classy cashmere. That is some pretty yarn right there. I'm guessing it's a worsted weight. Hand dyed. Superwash Merino, 7%, 20% cashmere, 10% nylon. I definitely need to buy this. Besides, it was hand dyed in the USA. So, go America, because we got to support local makers. Absolutely. What is this? Debbie Bliss Alpaca Silk. Why, whatever I make with this, I could just knit it up into a square with maybe some cables, put a frame around it, hang it up on that wall. Nobody would know it was there. But I would know. I could feel it. And it feels delightful. So yeah, looking on your yarn as your own yarn store, that is tremendous fun. Here's another trick. We can play tricks on ourselves. Another trick that is potentially highly recommended. Let's see what you think. I have to organize my store, people. I have to organize my store. There we go. Now, I've found some delightful options here. And here's another one. This is called Pocket Paints. Pocket Paints, maybe you're familiar. Delightful, soft. I've got to have this yarn. So, now that I have this yarn, I can just enjoy it in one very simple, straightforward manner. I can wind it into a ball. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but when I wind my yarn into a ball, I do it by hand because, again, it's just one more sort of, should we say, encounter with the yarn. So, heck, maybe I can just start doing that, Why not? Got a couple of things here to cut, but that's another thing, if you bought hanks of yarn, which a lot of us do, you can't really use it until you wind it into a ball. So, and it's like an accomplishment, you get that one into a ball and you're like, I did it, I did something, I'm a knitter, yarn lover, and I'm totally not overindulging in my hobby. I'm getting stuff done. What if you made a catalog of your stash? Do you ever do that? I've heard of people doing it. Now, to be honest, the time I spend cataloging my stash, I could spend winding it or organizing it or just touching it. But if you're super organized, you've got a librarian in your blood, you could create a spreadsheet, or I'm sure there are stash tracking apps, and that could be a fun way to enjoy your yarn without, spending more money on yarn that you might not have room for, or that the moths might want to eat. Now, let me know what you think about this idea. This, use your oldest yarn first. So, in the first place, I mean, I have an idea of which of my yarn is the oldest. And it's, I've only been knitting since my son was a freshman in high school. It's like 10 years? 10 years? I've been knitting for 10 years, Joe. So, I probably have yarn that's, 9 or 10 years old. And one of the skeins is the skein that he used for the scarf that he made when he was in fashion class. It's the last thing he ever knit, which I'd like to change. Culver, if you're watching this, just know that's how I feel. I don't know. I mean, I have an idea of, maybe it's smart. Maybe it's just smart to use your oldest yarn first. I would be going back to some of the Lopi yarn that I got at Goodwill, out of which I knit a sweater, and of which there are still like half a dozen skeins left. I could probably knit a whole other sweater out of that stuff. This is kind of fun. I recommend this. It's very cathartic. It's healing. What about this idea? What do you think of this? Declare a one project at a time rule. Now, one of you commented that's how you do, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, I want to be in that painting of the Scream right now, because I don't know if I could do that. I don't know. One project at a time until you finish your current whips. Finish. Here's another one. Finish your whips. Finish your whips. Crossing long neglected projects off your list. Does that sound like a good idea? Does that sound satisfying? I mean, I have several of those, but finish your whips. I'm supposed to finish all these whips? Dude, I mean, I don't know. I can barely understand all the whips that I have. I'm like, that would be huge. I would be amazed. Right now, I'm just trying to get through some of my sock whips, which is already a lot, and I feel good about my progress. So maybe how about if I cross off one whip? Would that work? I can just cross off one. I think that would be satisfying, and then I could cast on that hat project I've been thinking about. Would that be okay? That sounds more appealing. What if you make a works in progress queue? And you got to get them all done before you cast on anything new. Honestly, to me, I would have to go to a mental hospital. That would be like a nightmare. Someone comes to me in my dream and says, okay, get to work. You got to finish all those whips. Otherwise, you cannot start another one. And I'd be the Scream again. I don't know. Now, here's something that sounds maybe more fun. See what you think. If you hold a stash diving session, just get out all your bins and just dive in, kind of like dumpster diving, but with your buckets of yarn that you bought because you love the yarn, and you just can't resist playing with it. What if we put it all in one of those tubs with the balls that the kids jump in? We just jump in it. And we just, whee! That would be a lot of fun. Stash diving session. Okay, that I can dig into. You can also try a different tack and pair some orphan skeins together to see if there's maybe some kind of unexpected color combination, texture combination, weight combination, something that you could do. Like, for example, boom! I've got these two yarns. I don't know. How about maybe these two? Okay. I don't know. They're like different weights, different textures, but it could be fun. Could come up with something new. Could invent something brand new. This might be a little more compatible. Or let's see what else. I have this one, and these would go perfectly. These would go together. These are perfect together. Could invent, a new fashion trend. Could put it on TikTok. That'd be kind of cute. Like, just go through like 6 months of randomized hats. You could just like pick blind, just dive in, don't look, just pick out 2 skeins and say, okay, I'm going to make a colorwork hat. Do that like 10 times and just see what you come up with. That could be kind of fun. I think people might find that at the very least it would be entertaining. And you might have some hats you could use. You could also just, I don't know, give them away, put them on a doll, right? Now, here's a little bit of a different take on, so what if And again, this is all very, very tentative and just like suggestions, right? Because we all know we're going to go out as soon as this podcast is over and buy, 6 skeins of yarn. But what if, instead of doing that, I feel like I'm your yarn therapist. What if you learned a new stitch pattern instead of getting another skein of yarn? What if you learned something I don't know, like brioche, or I like all these French words, entrelac. I should learn entrelac just because I like French. I'm going to start teaching French in a few weeks again. Or what if you learned Tunisian crochet, or you got your friend to show you how they do cables, or a special technique for, God forbid, spinning sock yarn? What if I took this book that I bought 5 years ago thinking, I'm going to learn this, and I actually learned it? That'd be cool. Double knitting? Are you kidding me? That would be so useful. Can you imagine the whole brand new world of scarves alone that you can make by using double knitting? Because doing color work looks great on the front. And the back, maybe not so great. But with double knitting, that doesn't matter. I don't know about double knitted socks. That to me sounds more like you're knitting boots. I guess it depends on how thin the yarn is. If you've done it, let me know. But here are some ones where you're double knitting and felting it. You can make a basket. I've never done that. Sometimes it's like the perfect occasion to learn a new technique. You like hit a wall, you're like, I just can't buy any more yarn. I'm so frustrated. And then you're like, well, this is the perfect occasion to make a placemat out of wool. Yes, or maybe cotton. Or let's see what else. This book has some really cool ideas. You could make a can cozy. I never thought of making a can cozy. What if I just went out on a limb, made something totally new, and made a can cozy? Here's your book, by the way, Knitting Double. If you knit double, I want to hear about it because, to be honest, this is probably top on my list of new techniques to learn, of course, after I get my ball skeined up. You could experiment. Maybe you could extend your skills. Maybe you could just say, well, I'm going to make some swatches. I got a lot of colors here, and I really need to continue making those 8 colorwork sweaters that I started in the past 5 years. But in the meantime, I could make a swatch. I could dream of something new to make while I'm not making it, right? Could maybe improve my finishing skills. Somebody was confessing to me today that they always do their sweaters top down. They can't imagine how to do it bottom up. And so, yeah, you could maybe learn a new skill, how to knit a sweater bottom up and how to attach the sleeves. New skills that have to do with finishing your projects. Maybe steeking. Maybe Latvian braid, that would be a good use of the opportunity to starve yourself of yarn on your diet. This thing is, of course, it's getting all twisted because that's what happens when I skein up yarn by hand, which is always what I do. I actually have a Swift that somebody gave me. In fact, I might have two. I don't know. But I haven't really used it yet. I don't have a place to hook it up. I'd have to screw it into my son's dresser, and I just haven't been able to make myself do that yet. But yeah, you could swatch for future projects and sort of apply that in the dream so we can get away from that nightmare scenario that we had earlier. You must finish our whips, and instead you can dream about new projects. That would be cool. Maybe you could learn how to be a good blocker. You could learn more techniques for how to launder your woolens. Maybe you could buy wool wash. Well, we don't want to buy stuff. But in any case, there are new things you could do. Or else, so if maybe, if you're an online yarn buyer, and you just like to look at what's there, it's kind of like what I do with boots. Instead of browsing for yarn, you could browse for patterns. And there are a lot of free patterns out there. And that could be kind of fun because it's a way to use up the yarn that you have. And you could browse patterns for friends, patterns for gifts, patterns for Christmas, patterns for your family, patterns for strangers, patterns for all kinds of stuff. Instead of looking for yarn. This is proving a challenge to skein up. We're making it, but yeah, it's Even though it's a small skein, it's giving me a headache. And what about using up, so a lot of what we have on our stash often is leftovers. Like when I made that leftover sock yarn sweater, that really did feel good. That was a lot of fun. And now I'm like, I have to accumulate more leftovers so that I can make sweaters with more leftovers, because it's almost as much, if not more fun than making the sweaters with the yarn that I actually intended, like the giant arbon, that I was actually like planning. And I will, at some point, I'll make the sweater, right? Maybe I should just cast on all the projects that I haven't done with the yarn that I still have, that I was thinking about using for those projects that I should have cast on by now anyhow, because I was too busy trying to finish up the other ones I cast on. That's logical, right? Or maybe you could, again, going to the dreaming, maybe, what do you think about this? Just like plan out future yarn purchases. Just kind of like make a wish list, kind of like a baby registry or a wedding registry. Here's my list of yarn that I want in the future, but I can't have now because right now I'm fasting. But when I stop fasting, I'll know what I'm going to buy. Which, now, personally, I'm just going to give my opinion on this one right off the bat here. I like buying yarn on a whim. It's more exciting. I think I wouldn't stop buying yarn on a whim. So if I planned to buy yarn, it would be in addition to the yarn that I just kind of happen upon and think, ooh, you're inspiring me. So I don't know. For me, that would backfire. But you could also maybe, you could get away from the yarn and still connect with it by watching knitting podcasts, such as yours truly, or reading the books, all the books that you have about knitting in your library. Now that would kind of connect with the idea of learning new techniques, right? You could go over the books, you could maybe find some surprise patterns that you didn't know you had in your library, and you're like, whoa, I should get this 3 skeins of purple yarn and the 5 skeins of pink yarn that I have, and make that double knitting project that I thought would be cool 5 years ago, and then I stopped thinking about it. So yeah. Or you could even, you could just like educate yourself. You can watch maybe podcasts or videos about sheep, or about wool, or about the wool industry, or yarn stores in other countries, or what other people are doing with their yarn buying, and maybe some country that you're probably never going to go to, like, what is yarn buying like in, I don't know, Argentina, or Poland, or, that could be interesting. That could be a fun way to connect without spending a whole bunch of money, and could be pretty exciting. Might be a nice, like a distraction. Let's call it a distraction to kind of just make me feel a little bit less sad about not buying any more yarn. Now, you could try to make the whole thing fun. There are people who do like stash busting challenge, and I think there are probably stash busting make-alongs. So if you could like make it even social, or instead of like collecting yarn, maybe you could collect statistics on your progress with your knitting, like yardage goals or something like that, or how many little tiny skeins of sock yarn that you used up when you were making that random octopus sweater. That could be an interesting way of dealing with it too. So stash busting challenges, kind of, gamify it, or track how many skeins leave your stash, maybe depending on how they leave it, like you burn it, or you just throw it in the trash, or you give it to Salvation Army. Now, obviously, I would never do any of those things, because I'm the type of person who, if someone comes up to me and says, would you like some yarn? I'm like, uh-huh. So, but in any case, I would probably, if I was going to track something like that, I would track how many skeins I used up. But again, personally, I don't track stuff like that, because every second I spend tracking it, I can't spend winding it and getting all frustrated with how it's getting tangled. But some people love that kind of organization. They just thrive on it. What if you sort of take a different tack and you start getting like more creative, like design your own patterns? And you could use the yarn that you have, kind of like what I was suggesting before about, let's make 10 random hats by just picking without looking, 2 skeins per hat and just seeing what comes of it. What if you actually were a little bit more purposeful about that, and you wrote patterns based on, I've got this skein of purple, and I've got these 3 skeins of blue marl, and I've got a yellow skein, and I have this sock knitting yarn. Now I'm going to make a pattern. I'm going to see what it'd be like. I've often thought of writing a symphony. I have written a band piece, by the way. I've written a very good band piece. Some people know. But in any case, I would take the last 4 digits of a random person's credit card. Let's just say, I don't know, 1802. And so I figure out what the tones for 1802. And I would make a whole symphony around just those 3 notes. And then you could do that now with random yarn. You could design patterns around random yarn. Or as a kind of a, look, I'm almost done. As a kind of a tangent to that, you could learn marling, and you could take the colors of yarn that you have, maybe, hopefully, similar weights, and you could, now I can just hold it. It's a cute little ball, look at that. And you could mix them together and see, make swatches and see what happens when you try to marl the yarn. That can be really fun. Or you could just do stripes, like random stripes, or you could like do different borders or really exotic color work, kind of like the octopus one that I did. Or some people do like a scrappy blanket. Now, one of the things I've heard, which actually kind of tickles me, is people will do squares, could be crochet, could be knitting, and based on the colors of book covers. And one of my books was actually included. I saw somebody wrote, I forget if it was on Reddit, maybe, how they had included one of my books in their book blanket project. And the colors of each book were represented in the square, and they connected all the squares and they made a blanket. So you can make scrappy blankets. You could probably, with my stash, I could probably easily find colors to match most of the book covers that would come my way. Or you could invent like little mini projects, kind of like what I was showing in this book, like, you know, little caddies or amigurumi or coasters, all kinds of stuff, just based on the yarn that you have. Now, you can get even more social, maybe schedule a knit along. Maybe you could get some friends together, say, let's knit together and let's only use stash yarn. And it'd be interesting to see what people brought. Could trade patterns, you could trade techniques while you're doing it. Here's another idea, comes up in my random list. What if you just go to a yarn festival and you don't take your credit card? And you're like, I'm just going to watch. Now, personally, I couldn't do that, but I'd be curious if you felt like you would be in a position to do that. If you want to get a little more philosophical about the whole situation, which sometimes is useful, right? Because take a distance, you know, and just try to engage your rational mind. Remind yourself why you started crafting in the first place. The reason you began crafting wasn't to just go out and buy a bunch of yarn, was it? You know, you intended to make things. And so if that's the purpose of having the yarn, then make things instead of buying it. I mean, that's kind of what I've been leaning into lately is, you know, I've got this yarn, which is, again, it's one of the reasons I keep casting stuff on, is because you know, it's what I'm supposed to do is make stuff with the yarn. But obviously I have a lot of whips. So, but you can also think in terms of, instead of owning the yarn, having it, which is very tempting. And let's be honest, a lot of the reason why we go out and buy it in the first place is because we enjoy that dopamine hit when we find it and we claim it and we just borrow the money and take it home with us. And then you go home and you're like, time to make dinner. So you can focus on using the yarn instead of owning it, or just, dare I say, acquiring it. And then you can look on your finished objects and the things that you actually like use. Like I just washed my socks again the other day, and there's so many pairs hanging, crowding that line that my daughter set up between those trees in the backyard. I can't even fit them all on there. But it makes me happy because those finished objects represent the yarn fulfilling its purpose, which is, of course, we want the yarn to fulfill its purpose. Otherwise, what's it going to do? Fester? Get eaten by moths? We can take pride in becoming a more intentional maker instead of a more prolific shopper, right? So yeah, there are exceptions. I mean, there have to be. There have to be exceptions. We have to continue supporting the people who support our craft. So, you know, maybe you have this project in mind. You've got 5 skeins. You're like, I think I need 6. Go buy that 6th skein, you know? Or I would like to use these 6 skeins, but I'm going to add color work. Okay, buy a few skeins in the colors that would go along with it. So it's not like we're not going to buy any yarn. Or maybe you're just having a rough day and you're like, darn it, I'm just going to buy a skein of yarn today. Happens. And, you know, it really does help. You're better off buying a skein of yarn than drinking a gallon of vodka. Let's just be honest, okay? But, you know, you can try to purchase only when you have a specific project that you're ready to work on after you've finished all your other projects that you need to work on, which could be in about 5 or 6 years. And gifts. So, you know, people have offered me yarn, and I'm still probably at the stage where I wouldn't turn it down. However, it makes a lot of sense to only accept gifted yarn that fits with your crafting goals. Now, looking back, okay, I accepted 2 huge garbage bags full of acrylic yarn. Because I was like, cool. Well, that ended up at Goodwill. Because guess what? I don't use acrylic yarn. So, if I do accept gifted yarn, like this little baby right here, which I think that's how I got it, it's because it fits in with my knitting agenda. And yes, I probably would use it. At the very least, my daughter would probably use it. And, again, if you want to, like, dream, because some of us dream about yarn. Now, I'm honestly not one of them. I don't know what I dream about. It's pretty weird. It's usually big houses. And they're not full of yarn, although they could be. That would be kind of cool. But you can make a list of dream yarns. And they don't even necessarily have to be connected to a project. Just like, I want yak in maroon and yak in burnt orange. I don't know why. I just like it. A couple years from now, maybe you could put on your Christmas list. Or you could go to Mongolia, which that'd be really cool. I should go there. And just buy it, right? Because it's like you're planning on it, and we can have a little fun, right? It's like somebody doing a food diet and they forswear sugar or whatever. Well, most people do that. They're going to have sugar like every few months or something. It's not like they're never going to have it again. I mean, I had to stop eating ice cream so much because of high cholesterol. So I was like, okay. So, you know, when I was in Atlanta, my son was like, let's go out for ice cream. I was like, sure. It's not like I'm never going to eat it. It's not like we're never going to buy yarn. So yeah, you can kind of make a list of dream yarns, or you can think about like going on that yarn tour, going to a foreign country. It's always fun to go to yarn stores in a foreign country. So yeah, it could be tough, right? To be on a yarn diet. A lot of us have to contend with that, but giving you a lot of coping strategies. And again, I would encourage you, you know, if you're game, share what you think are the top 3 or ones that you would never in a million years do. Let us know your strategies. Maybe we're missing something here that you think are good for coping with a yarn diet. Maybe your strategy is no more yarn. I'm not even going to touch my knitting for a week. Just take a break and do woodworking or work on my piano, right? Instead of learning double knitting, I could go out and learn Italian. Could be. So let us know your thoughts. Hope you all are having a great week. We'll talk soon. Ciao.